this mission. So how did the president go from ordering a troop surge 18 months ago when he first took office to then ordering a withdrawal? There's speculation he cut out, and according to the New York Times story, his generals, and even left his Secretary of Defense and State out until the very last minute. Joining us right now is the former executive director of Vets for Freedom, U.S. Army Captain Pete Hegseth. And Pete, you were just fighting this war in Afghanistan a short time ago. What's your reaction to the lack of military input into our game plan?
Well, I wish I was surprised, but it doesn't come as a surprise to me. You know, when you surge and you add 30,000 troops to a battlefield, and then you tell the enemy when you're going to leave at the same time, and you set a deadline of 2014, that's not something a military general would ever request or would ever talk about. So that's going to be the idea of someone on the political side who said, well, okay, let's commit to a surge, let's see what we can do to affect the outcome, but let's also hedge our bets and make sure that we're heading for the exits just in time to be drawing down by Election Day, or drawing down in time to not get too invested in a war that, and that article talked about it. The president said, quote, you know, he kind of hated the idea of the surge to begin with. He didn't want to be doing what he was doing, felt compelled to do so, and added the withdrawal timeline in order to hedge on it.
Well, he trapped by his own words, saying this is good war, it's a war we have to win, and now he changed his objective. So he doesn't listen to his generals. The surge happens, but it doesn't get the full force that they wanted. In the end, David Petraeus, the story goes, is coming back with options for the president, only to find out the president made up his mind already. And then we find out the Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense were left out of the loop until the last week. As a guy who sits there and fights the war, physically fights the war on your multiple tours, how does it make you feel?
Well, you feel shortchanged. You wonder whether what's going on and what you're attempting to influence on the battlefield really did get the fair shake. You know, President Obama feels like, I think all along has felt like the generals will attempt to push him, pressure him into more time or more troops. And I think in talking to his political advisors, we're trying to create a scenario where they weren't able to do so. Well, yes, generals will sometimes be invested in a war, but political advisors aren't in touch with what's actually happening on the ground. So they're going to make decisions based on Washington, D.C., political expediency, and that's exactly what you get. So the feel on the ground in Afghanistan is just that. We're setting a timeline for what? Not to be successful on the battlefield, but because someone in Washington wants to make sure they're hedging their bets.
And guys like you, Captain Hegseth, will say that, you know what, as you take troops out, it's more dangerous for those that are still left behind. And if the mission isn't clear in the White House, how do you get up every day and go on your missions to take out the Taliban and your high-value targets if you know the fundamental support is not there?
It's going to get more difficult for these guys, especially with a backstop. If it's conditions-based, that's one thing, but a backstop of a dead, hard timeline, which was reiterated again at the NATO summit, that it will be December 31st, 2014, and all combat operations done by the summer of 2013. With that backstop, it becomes very, very difficult to affect the outcome.
We know Hamid
Afghans are looking right through us.
And real quick, we know Hamid Karzai's dad was killed by the Taliban. He does not like the Taliban, but do you believe when he's done and we're out, the Taliban are back?
It doesn't look good. I wish it looked positive, but I don't know if the Afghan army is strong enough to hold that country together based on this short of a timeline.
Well, thanks for your service, and I hope you get back into politics because this country needs people like you. Pete Hegseth, thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian.